Hi everyone, we're here today with the Doctor in Athletic Training students, and we're going to talk about how to increase access to athletic trainers. First, I want to introduce everyone. My name is Brittany Tadero. I'm in the Doctorate in Athletic Training program at Indiana State, and I currently work for the track and field and cross country team as a graduate assistant.
Hi, my name is Shannon Rowe. I am a graduate assistant as well at Indiana State University. Currently getting my doctorate in athletic training, and I work with the Indiana State softball team.
Sean Rogers, athletic trainer working with the men's basketball team at Indiana State University. I am also in the DAT getting my doctorate at Indiana State University.
My name is Chelsea Toney. I am currently in the post-professional doctorate in athletic training program at Indiana State University, and I work as an athletic trainer for the cheer and dance teams at Indiana State.
I am Emma Nye, primary responsibilities with Indiana State Volleyball, also in the Doctorate of Athletic Training program.
Okay, so I guess I'll start this off. So one of the articles or the research that's out there saying that not all schools have access to athletic trainers, but besides that, not all schools have access to full-time athletic trainers. How do you guys think that we can improve that in terms of making sure athletic trainers are available at the secondary school settings, not just having an athletic trainer, having access to it, but having an athletic trainer who is there full-time for all sports coverage, no matter what?
Money. You need money. I think that's like one of the biggest things. I would be interested to like talk to athletic trainers in the secondary school in Hawaii. They actually have 100% of athletic trainers in high school settings. So no matter what high school, public, or I believe public and private, all high schools have an athletic trainer. I'm interested to know what their contracts are like. Are they contracted through the school? Is they through a hospital, a PT? How are they able to do like supply all these athletic trainers? And I think that's something that we need to be looking into. Is Hawaii is the only state that has that, and they're the only one that has 100% employed ATs in their high school secondary settings. So I think that we need to be a little more involved in Hawaii's system and what they have going on, so we can implement it in the states on the mainland.
Do you guys think that, like you mentioned, Sharon, whether they're contracted through a hospital or they're hired directly by the school, do you think that having an athletic trainer hired directly by the school has a big influence in this, in terms of having full-time athletic trainers versus part-time athletic trainers?
You know, I'll go ahead and I'll jump in on that question for Shannon. I think that sometimes when you see that contract through different PT clinics and you see it through different hospitals, that's when you start seeing some of those athletic trainers who are working part-time in the high school setting as opposed to full-time. When a clinic would like to put them maybe 40% of the time at a high school, 20% of the time at a middle school, and then in other settings. So I think that when the athletic trainer works out of that contracted area, that's when you start seeing some of those really wonky coverage schedules. That might just be game coverage only, or Friday night game coverage only, or non-travel only home contact coverage. So I think that's an issue that we need to I don't think it's necessarily bad that athletic trainers are contracted in that way. I have my own reservations about athletic trainers being contracted out by PTs, but I think that model of being contracted out, there needs to be a big education component towards it.
Yeah, that's a good point. It makes me think of the bill that Iowa has passed, in that there needs to be an athletic trainer in for games, home game coverage for football, men's basketball, and I believe girls soccer. Obviously, contact, high collision sports. But if that bill included just medical services for an athlete for everything, rather than coverage for 2-3 hours on a Friday night for a Friday night football game, I think that would be moving in the right direction. I think that bill was obviously pretty vital towards getting athletic trainers in secondary school settings. But if we take it a step further and stop providing coverage and start providing medical care, I think that we'll move forward.
You know, and I want to add on something to that too. I think the rural setting is really where we start to see some of the issues. I come from a rural setting myself, and I graduated with a little bit less than 100 people, which actually in my part of the state was a lot. And there was certain districts within the state where you would have high schools that would have a total population from 9 to 12 of only about 80 to 90 students. So when it comes to athletes, you can only have 20 athletes, 30 athletes in the entire school. So then that begs the question, how is one athletic trainer going to provide coverage for only 20 to 30 athletes? And then that's when you start getting a lot of pushback saying, why are we hiring this individual to provide sports coverage for only 20 to 30 individuals? And I think, Emma, if we go off of what you said, if we start switching our model from like sports coverage to healthcare coverage, and we start trying to push some of those other aspects of our scope of practice, then I think that that's how we can really kind of get that last final push of getting athletic trainers into some of those rural settings. So if we shift our focus from, oh, we're just sports, to, okay, no, we're a key component in this rural healthcare system connecting all students at this school or this district to healthcare within the community. I think that's really how we need to market it to get in that last kind of vestiges of the rural schools.
So does anyone, I have a question, sorry Brittany, just jumping in. Does anyone think that per diem rates are kind of involved with this, kind of maybe getting a set per diem rate? I don't know, I kind of see an issue with that all the time, with some athletic trainers getting paid less than what they should for per diem, and maybe that's an issue too.
You mean getting paid per hour versus getting paid annually?
Right, so if they're not going to have a full-time athletic trainer, they're just going to get per diem work for coverage.
We went to a talk at NATA that was basically on internships, but it also touched on per diem work. And there was some argument and some dialogue in the room where these athletic trainers were taking these internships for $3,000 for a year because that set them up for the opportunity to work for that organization for the next 5 years. So some dialogue came up about per diem work, in that if an athletic trainer takes $15 an hour as opposed to nothing, yes, that may help the athletic trainer in the short term, pay rent and buy the necessities, but it hurts the profession. So I think taking a step back and being a little bit selfish in terms of athletic training rather than selfish in your own personal needs is important.
I want to chime in on that. You guys will have kind of seen one of my TED Talks for DAT week, but basically talking about how, kind of what you were saying, Emma, where not necessarily in terms of pay, but in terms of what we're able to do in terms of our scope of practice. So for example, in the industrial setting, you're not able to completely do all that you're able to do because there's nurses on site as well, and they do the emergency care. And one person that I know, she wasn't able to do emergency care because the nurses did it, and she was only basically doing rehabilitation or ergonomic assessments for the workers. So not that I would say don't take those jobs that don't give you the opportunity to use your full scope of practice, but kind of being aware and advocating, like we mentioned, to be able to do all that you can in that actual setting. I think that that'll help promote the profession, and it'll kind of help to get the mindset off of athletic trainers doing coverage only, not doing coverage, that we need to do all that we can in terms of our abilities, and that'll kind of help with that advocacy in terms of that. Another thing that I wanted to mention has to do with the secondary school setting, specifically as you mentioned before. Do you think that hiring athletic trainers to work throughout the day at the school would kind of help this kind of full versus full-time versus part-time coverage? I guess working with the school nurse or being there the whole entire day, acting as a school nurse. Do you think that will kind of ease that whole being covered full-time versus part-time hired model?
I don't know if I really see, like, obviously depending on the school and the size of the school, I don't know if having an athletic trainer at a school from 8 to 7, depending on practices, is really necessary.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I do think that, like, having a full-time athletic trainer would be, like, obviously be beneficial, but I don't know if being there during the school day would be necessary. Maybe from, like, lunchtime on, but, like, being there at 8 a.m. when the first classes start, I don't know if that's something that's necessary. Obviously, I've done hours at high schools where during the PE times, some of the students who are athletes can go into the athletic training room, get treatment, do rehab or whatever, if they can't participate in the PE classes. But I don't know, like, that. Then, of course, you have to think about that too, is if you can't provide services to every single student at the school, because not everyone's either an athlete, so they can't be, like, covered, or, you know, I mean, like I said before, too, it kind of depends on the size of the school. So I don't know if I'm 100% sold on having, like, an athletic trainer 24/7, or, like, from when school starts, because then you have to start thinking about work-life balance of the athletic trainer. If they're there at 8 a.m. and they have to work a football game and it goes till about, what, 10 o'clock, they have to clean up, and then they're not done until 11:30. They just worked well over the hours that they're probably getting paid for.
Mm-hmm. But do you think that, I mean, if they get paid for those hours, those extra hours, I'm saying they're hired by the actual school or they're hired by a contract from a hospital, no matter what. Most likely it will be hired directly by the school. And they were paid just like the hours that a teacher is paid. I guess they wouldn't come in directly at 8 a.m. Maybe they'd help to cover physical education classes for the students there as well. And not just doing sports coverage, actually providing medical care to everyone in the facility.
Well, if you're teaching classes, would you then have to be, would you be dual employed? Employed as a teacher and employed as an athletic trainer, or, like, how? I guess I would be confusing the logistics there.
Yeah, well, not being dual employed. I mean being employed by the school, not teaching or anything. I mean, that's one option, but just being there to help cover PE classes if anyone gets hurt in PE classes or things like that. Helping to manage athletes who may have gotten concussions and helping them kind of deal with the teachers and having to deal with extra time they need for schoolwork, and collaborating with the school nurse in that sense as well.
I think that there's you're bringing up 3 points here, and I kind of want to talk about the first point that I want to talk about was kind of at one point you said athletic trainers replacing or working in conjunction with school nurses. I think definitely working in conjunction with school nurses could be beneficial. I don't think, given our skill set, though, that working as a school nurse or taking over that role would really be beneficial. I feel like that doesn't kind of flush out our scope of practice. And while, yes, we could deal with an occasional, the kids who come in feeling nauseous and sending them home and doing some of those evaluations. I feel like that would almost, in a way, pigeonhole us into doing double duty. When it comes to athletic trainers being hired by the school district, I personally believe that if an athletic trainer works for a school or a school district as opposed to a contractor, that really sets that individual up for better relationships with their stakeholders and more control over their schedule and overall a better environment. When I did my hours at a high school, I had one working with an athletic trainer's contract out for a PT clinic and one who was actually hired on by the district, and the differences between the two were amazing. And while that might not translate everywhere, I think it does build greater relationships, and it really does show a lot of the stakeholders involved the importance of an athletic trainer, more so if it's just someone coming from a clinic. To focus on that last point about athletic trainers working all day, in some cases they do have split educational models as well as clinical models, so the athletic trainer will teach maybe the last 2 periods of the day doing sports medicine, and then they'll go on to coverage. And in that case, I think it's a good use of an athletic trainer, but if we're talking about getting into some of those really rural schools that I was talking about earlier, those schools with very, very low enrollment and low amounts of money, it's not really feasible for them in a way to pay maybe a split position for the athletic trainer to be there all day. So they might still have a full-time job, but that full-time job might just be doing athletics, or a full-time position might be split between maybe 2 schools in a district or 3 schools in a district as the athletic trainer. So I think it depends on the spectrum. If we're in a very affluent area and a school district has a lot of money, then yeah, they might take an athletic trainer on and say, hey, we're going to have you teach 2 classes at the end of the day. We're going to have you do the sports coverage, and we'll pay you overtime anytime you go over 40 hours a week. But that's going to be different from a rural school in a low socioeconomic area.
Right. Like if it's a big school, I have a friend of mine. She actually works at I don't remember, but it's basically a Division I, like a 6A, in Texas, and she's there full time. It's actually her and 2. It's her and another athletic trainer, so there's 2 of them at this school, and they are full time. They are there all day, but their pay is accommodated for the hours that they put in. So I definitely think that it is possible, but like Sean mentioned and like I said before, it honestly depends on the school and what they can have access to. You're definitely not going to see something like that at a smaller school with only 100 kids at it. So I don't know exactly how I feel. I'm kind of indifferent, I guess.
I guess I just feel like we have bigger problems to address, I guess. So why fight for an athletic trainer to work more in that particular setting when the high school down the street doesn't even have one? Mm-hmm. So while I do think it's a good idea, and absolutely we all have either friends or colleagues or old preceptors that may have taught a class and been compensated for that, and I probably wouldn't turn down the money either. But I do think when we take a step back and look at the profession as a whole, we do, I guess, have bigger issues, in my opinion.
Right.
I agree with you when you said that, Emma. How do you, Chelsea, do you have anything to add on that topic?
No, it's okay, you can go.
Okay. So, besides the secondary school setting, how do you think that athletic trainers can increase their access to the public just the general public, not just dealing with high schools or colleges, because colleges have athletic trainers. Secondary school settings, they may or may not, but what about the general public?
So, as I was saying, I did grow up in a more rural community, and a lot of us, and I use us as a collective term with as a lot of the individuals I went to school with, a lot of us didn't really have strong connections to healthcare. We didn't have primary care physicians. We only, drove the 30 miles into town if we were really sick and we needed to go in the walk-in clinic. But the only consistent access to healthcare that we often had was some of those mobile healthcare clinics that would come to our school, that would drive all the way out. They would test our, our height, our weight, our vision, our blood pressure, and all that. And every year it was biannual, and it was something that we all looked forward to because they would show us like how we've changed, and we could say like, oh, we've gained this much weight, we've grown this much, and your blood pressure looks good, and you got a great green sticker. And I think if athletic trainers were able to find a way, and maybe it wouldn't be in the younger adolescent population, it'd be more in the high school population, but if we found a way to partner with some of these mobile health clinics, maybe offering orthopedic screenings, doing a 5-minute, like quick, maybe using a screening tool to assess whatever we wanted to do. I think that this would really help gain access to some of those rural communities and prove our worth. And while a rural community might not be able to pay for our services, if we can prove our worth and we can identify a very specific pinpointed problem, that would set us up for a position where we might be able to get government grants to help further access that community. So that's kind of a gateway that I would see that we can get into that rural community more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was going to say something similar of just doing like an outpatient type of free clinic. Obviously, we can't do that 24/7, or like athletic trainers can assist in it. I think the biggest thing, if athletic trainers are going to help in the public, they need to make sure that like we kind of not only educate what we do as athletic trainers, but like letting people know that we do our specialty is mostly in orthopedics, and how we know how to work in a more orthopedic prevention setting of, hey, you have a lot of pronation when you're just in your normal gait, make sure you're looking out for these types of injuries. Here's some exercises to help you, because we want to make sure that we're helping the public, but I don't think that we don't want to be stepping on toes of nurses or other physicians who might have other specialties. I think it's also just making people know and aware of what athletic trainers are, because it's still a growing profession.
Do you guys, there are a lot of athletic trainers who work in physical therapy clinics that help the general public. Do you guys feel that that's a proper way for us to increase access to the public? Do you think working in a physical therapy clinic with a physical therapist is the best way to do that?
No, I'm going to say no. I think that if we're limiting ourselves to only working with physical therapists, we're not utilizing our full worth and potential. I think that, and I'm not saying athletic trainers who work in physical therapy offices aren't realizing their full potential. I just think that if that's the only way that we're pushing that, then we're really, again, pigeonholing ourselves. In Washington, an athletic trainer actually started his own clinic and does outpatient outreach services utilizing just athletic trainers. And it's a really fascinating model, and he's getting a lot of pushback from other physical therapists organizations who contract out athletic trainers. But I really think that we can kind of start breaking this mindset of, oh, we need to be contracted out of a physical therapist's office, or we need to be contracted out of a doctor's office. As long as we hit those specific points that we need to practice, having a supervising physician, having a team physician letter on file, as long as we hit those points, athletic trainers can create our own outreach clinics. We can do that. That's something that we are able to do. We just need to take that step, which is it's easier to see what's already existing and just go with it. But sometimes we need to be able to take that step to create something new that might help us and might help the community even more. It's scary, but I think that we can take that step.
I am going to disagree with you, Sean. I think that working in a PT clinic is just fine, and I don't think that it's pigeonholing an athletic trainer. And especially if the question is, can an athletic trainer work in a PT clinic? 100%. Why not? And it would be a great way and access to the public. Working in a PT clinic is you have your own set of rules, but you still are working and collaborating with the PT. I think it definitely increases IPE. You're working with another healthcare professional, and if you're like, I don't think it as a bad thing or not. Like, I don't see it as a step back for athletic training. Now, an athletic trainer who has their own clinic, yeah, that's awesome, but the actual probability of a physician giving direct access and being the supervisor, because we still have to have, we still have to be under a physician. I think that's really hard to do for, and like you said, you're that athletic trainer out in Washington, he's having a lot of pushback. Like, that is really difficult. California doesn't even have licensure, let alone start making their own clinics. Like, I don't know if there's a lot more legally licenses and I can't even think of words, but there's a lot more that goes into making your own clinic for an athletic trainer than I think you're putting behind it.
But I think it's a good start. Sorry.
I will say that an athletic trainer working at the physical therapy office is not bad, but I think when we look at the rural setting, the nearest physical therapist to me was about an hour and a half away. It was really, really far away. So if we're going to address some of these issues, if the only way we can see is accessing rural setting is saying, I need to find a physical therapy clinic to host me, then I feel like that's narrowing ourselves. And while it might be difficult, if we're going to take those steps, athletic trainers are more than capable. Absolutely more than capable. And I do agree with you that it could be hard, but I think that sometimes if we want to put ourselves in that sector, we got to be okay with some of that risks. And now that risk might not be an athletic trainer starting their own clinic. That might be partnering with another organization. I don't think that's bad, but I think what might be bad is the fact that the notion or ideology that the only way that we can be doing it is through a contract with a physical therapy clinic. That's what I was trying to get at.
If an athletic trainer got their own clinic, how, I guess, do you think that they would actually have access to the public, or do you think that the people that would use an athletic training clinic, do you think they would only be athletes or high school or anyone that has a physical, do you think that grandma would come see you, or do you think grandma would go see a PT?
So the
Sean,
clinic
is it set up like a walk-in clinic?
Yes. So the one that I'm referring to is more of a walk-in clinic, and it partners with local healthcare organizations, and it acts more as a screening clinic. And then their clinic contracts athletic trainers out into the community. So it's not necessarily like a physical therapy clinic where you go and you get diagnosed, prescribed for rehab, and then you do rehab there, because obviously athletic trainers aren't recognized by a lot of insurance companies, so that wouldn't work. But they take what we can do, and they're really focusing on that community outreach.
Do they make money at all?
Yeah, they make money off their contracts. So they contract the athletic trainers out to the local school districts and high schools, much like a physical therapy clinic would. And then they use some of that revenue, and they get government kickbacks for hosting some of those public open screening sessions that they do. So yeah, not saying an athletic trainer that works with a physical therapist is bad at all, because I mean that's one of the settings that we're in. But I think that when we explore options, we'll see that there's a lot of other ways to access this population.
I think it also contributes to the confusion between the athletic trainers and the physical therapists, but that's a whole other conversation.
Okay. Does anyone have any other questions, anything they would like to add? Any other last thoughts? Everyone's good? Okay. Well, thank you very much for attending today. Again, we are athletic training students in the Doctorate of Athletic Training program at Indiana State University. Thank you very much for watching.